Hello everyone and welcome back to La Vida Fútbol. Today's video is a small-sided game, 7 versus 7, and we have a 4-2-1 versus a 3-3-1 formation. The purpose of this small-sided game is not only to essentially play 7 versus 7, but to encourage our fullbacks to go up and down the field. So to help out both on the attack and both defensively. So if we take a look here, black is the team that we are working with. So as a coach, of course, your feedback and your instruction is going to be geared towards the black team here, X, and your opponents here are the circle, yellows. You will have to consider that all players are essentially part of the game, and you will need to give feedback, of course, to everyone. So we want our number 3 and our number 2 to go up and down the pitch. And normally in a game, the number 2 and the number 3 have a player in front of them in which they can lay the ball to and essentially have the option of either helping with a pass back or giving the ball and then doing an overlap, acting as a decoy, or essentially getting the ball. We can also have a run in front of the winger, and this again could also be a decoy to give time for the winger to essentially check out and then move the ball around either back or essentially to dribble and essentially creating space. But for this exercise, they do not have that winger. They are on their own on the wing, and this essentially requires them to make offensive decisions as well. So when black has the ball, they will essentially be in a position where they have to attack, because if they give the pass to one of the midfielders or if they manage to give a pass to the striker, it will be very difficult to score a goal when the striker is surrounded by defenders. Okay, so that is essentially the purpose of this small-sided game. Let's take a look at how we would set this up. Very simple. So for the setup, we have a little bit over half the field, at least lengthwise. We go maybe about 10 meters, 10 yards past the halfway line from the baseline here. And the width is not the full width of the field. We don't necessarily need the full width of the field for this. You can have full width. It's just with 7 versus 7, you want a lot of activity to happen. You want a little bit of pressure as well. And with having a thinner length of the field, this will add a little bit of pressure for players to make quick passes, make quick decisions, and also to not get tired of having all that space, because ultimately we want to remember what the purpose is that we want our fullbacks to attack and defend. Okay, so having more width is not gonna change that. The purpose is to go up and down the pitch, so we just need to make that a little bit longer rather than wider. Okay, so that is the setup. You need one big goal. So the game is 7 versus 7, but one of the teams will have a goalkeeper, and in this case the team playing in a 4-2-1 is a team with a goalkeeper, because we are working on that particular team to build up and also to defend. Okay, so that's essentially the setup. Very simple, like I said. And we are playing in a 4-2-1 versus a 3-3-1. Like I mentioned before, this is how it would look. So in a 3-3-1, the opponents in this case, will have a good balance, well organized in the center, and with always having two options covering the wings, in this case where the goals are, because we have two small goals on the other end, and this team should be able to shift together and essentially move together appropriately. So the reason I chose a 3-3-1 for the opponents is because this actually adds pressure to the fullbacks, right? So when they attack, they have to attack, because having two players there is very difficult for just the striker and one of the midfielders to attack. So having two players on the wing, we would need a third player there, being the fullback, to create a numerical disadvantage there of 3 versus 2. Okay, so those are some coaching points, right, to consider. The movements of the fullbacks, also the movements of the striker are important, right? Because in order to create that outnumbering situation, we also need the striker to be moving. But because they're alone, we can't expect the striker to always be going from left to right to center. It's a little bit too much running for that player, so they have to pick and choose their battles as to when it is appropriate to go up or to go to a side, to drop down, and to essentially help and create that outnumbering situation on the outside. A lot of the times, the striker striker will be there just to lay off the ball, to do a quick 1-2, and essentially to entice the players around him or her to be more compact, and in that situation try to get the ball out. Okay, so that is why I chose a 3-3-1. It has compact middle, but with enough players to shift over to the side to make it a little bit more complicated for our fullbacks. Okay, so now let's take a look at building up with this formation. So during the build up, we can have the opponents defend in different ways, right? We can have the yellow team here to put a little bit more pressure. So once the pass is made, that there is a lot of pressure going on, right? So this requires all of our players to be ready. Striker needs to come back to not be offsides. And here is when we begin, right? So now the fullback is essential for the build-up now, because there is no other option going forward. We only have the midfield there to support. And of course, if the striker has the energy and power, endurance as well to run to that corner, then of course they have that option, right? But if not, then they will have to deal with this player here on their own. And with the pressure coming, they will be forced to make decisions, right? So this can essentially lead to, just moving the ball around and trying to get out of this situation, right? Through essentially passing once we can get out of that situation. So if we can get the opponents to shift over to one side and we can get the ball to the other side, then we can essentially have our other fullback be ready to push up the field and to try to attack one of the goals directly unopposed. Of course, the opponents will come to defend immediately, but what we want to try to do is to build up to get them to shift over to one side so that it leaves one of the sides open, and this will lead to either an unopposed run forward or with a 1 versus 1. Of course, this player has only a few seconds to be able to beat this player on a 1-on-1, because before we know it, it'll be a 2 versus 1 outnumbered situation. Okay, so those are some coaching points as well, right? Or to move the ball around to get the opponents to shift over, get them to the other side. When that happens, try to get an unopposed run, and there you have the fullbacks having to work on a 1 versus 1. Okay, so that is essentially what we want. So we want to get to this situation here. Okay, so that is a little bit with build up. Okay, so now when yellow is building up, we can encourage a high press, a midfield press, or defensive press. But here we want to work on getting the ball as soon as possible. The field isn't too long, so there's a lot of opportunity to work on pressing the opponents and trying to recover the ball to try to counter and attack and score a goal as soon as possible. And again, this requires our fullbacks to push up and defend high, as there is no other player in front of them. So when this player gets the ball, we can already, have our left fullback there already put that pressure on, having the rest of the team shift over, striker covering the player that just made the pass, and then the other fullback tucking in to help out on the other side. So already we have the fullback having to push up high. Okay, so if the ball goes to the other side, then we work on shifting. Striker essentially just covers the other side, and then we are rotating again. Okay, and then the right fullback now will have the opportunity to start adding some pressure, but by the time they get there, the other midfield player should have the ball by then. Okay, so then the shifting occurs, and of course the goal is to try to recover the ball, and we do that by increasing the pressure there and hoping that we can recover the ball. If we do, then of course it's just a quick attack towards goal. If it's there, if it's not, then we essentially spread the field and try to create passing options, right? So if we have pressure there, then we can bring the ball back and then reset from there. Okay, so it's not about just kicking the ball forward and trying to force a goal, but more so reading the play, and if the opportunity to attack is there, then of course we do it. So let's say we recover the ball there and we essentially poke the ball out to the striker. So a coaching point here would be, okay, what was the reaction of our fullback here? Did they push up right away? Did they wait? Did they hesitate? And if they did, then of course we call them out on that. If not, then we'd say, well, good job, you were there. Should the pass come to the outside, we are there to put it inside the goal. Okay, yeah, but that's the game. 7 versus 7 with one of the teams having a goalkeeper and one big goal, 2 small goals on the wings. This encourages the fullbacks to push up and attack, and when the opponents have the ball, they are required to come back. And if we play in a backline of 4, then it's perfect playing with a 4-2-1 formation, because we have a backline of 4 and we can work on compactness, we can work on shifting together defensively, and these are all coaching points that you as a coach can discuss with your players. And again, just because you are working with, in this case, the black team, does not mean that you cannot give advice, feedback, and corrections to yellow as well. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, comment that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.